It's time. National Men's March to Rally for Personhood. Abolish Abortion and Rally for Personhood this weekend in Boston, Massachusetts. Today on The Simple Truth, we consecrate everything to the Sacred Heart of Jesus through the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the pure, strong, chaste heart of St. Joseph. I'm your host, Jim Havens, and our guest today is Pam Stenzel. She is founder of Enlightened Communications, enlightencom.com, executive producer for Bright Course, provides training and education for pregnancy centers worldwide, especially in U.S. and Canada, brightcourse.com. Also a consultant for Community Pregnancy Clinics, the largest network of pregnancy resource clinics in the state of Florida. Support CPCI.com. Pam Stenzel, welcome back to The Simple Truth. Always great to be with you. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good. It's good to be with you. We had to wear a sweater today to prepare for Boston, Jim, but also because it got chilly for us Floridians today as well. So
That's right. Yes, the temperatures are changing, but yeah, it should be a bit of a change of pace for those going from Florida to Boston this weekend. But for whoever you are, wherever you're coming in from, welcome. We invite you to come to Boston this weekend. Certainly, everybody who is in Boston, in the Boston area, you want to represent strong at the National Men's March to Abolish Abortion and Rally for Personhood this weekend. All the information at themensmarch.com, but it all begins actually tomorrow night, Friday, October 31st, at St. Mary of the Assumption on 25 Avery Street, Dedham, Massachusetts, 7 p.m. Confessions will be available, Eucharistic adoration, the Holy Mass at 7:30 p.m. So come join us at St. Mary of the Assumption to pray, to prepare spiritually together. Even if you're not going to be able to make it to the Men's March, but you're in the Boston area, you can come pray with us, bring that prayer support. That would be wonderful. But certainly everyone who is participating, a great way to spiritually prepare for the event on Saturday is to come on over and enter into this time of prayer Friday night over at St. Mary of the Assumption, beginning at 7 p.m. All right, so we're going to have Pam share some updates on what she's seen across the pro-life landscape, what she's seen in her work, anything she wants to comment on. We're going to get to that. Also, we'll preview the Men's March in Boston this weekend. We also have some clips of what Vice President J.D. Vance said just yesterday at the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, at a TPUSA event about abortion and what his view is. We'll get to all of this. Plus, let's even open up the phone lines. If there's any questions that you have, any pro-life questions, any questions about the Men's March coming up this weekend, anything at all, phone lines are open for you. Feel free to call in 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. But Pam, let's begin with any updates that you're seeing right now since you've been on last. What are you noticing? What can you share with us today?
Yeah, I think continually, I've spent the last 6 weeks speaking for pregnancy centers across the country. I was just in Massachusetts beginning of the month of October, and just kind of seeing what's going on the ground with the pregnancy centers kind of shows you the fight that we're in, and the reality that doesn't matter if you're in a blue state or a red state, that our battle is really still the same. And even in these states that have claimed to have banned abortion per se, some did a better job of it than Florida, but even in those states like Texas and Arkansas and Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, the southern states, we're seeing literally floods of these abortion pills coming across the borders and coming into these states. And I think the last number I saw, just one provider of these mail order abortion pills claimed to have mailed out over 180,000 sets of these drugs to women since a year ago. So it would have been 2024. I don't know if they were going current, but massive amounts of these pills going out. Women are being lied to. They're being called missed period pills. Women are being told to stock up on them. They don't even have to even prove that they're pregnant or have a positive pregnancy test. Just take them if they miss their period. It is so ridiculously dangerous. And it is something that that even our pro-life states that have passed laws prohibiting abortion after 6 weeks or after a heartbeat can be detected, the reality is they have zero control and very little control over all of these abortifacients being mailed in to the states. And so it's just a huge battle. And I know the pregnancy centers, I had a Zoom call recently with pregnancy center directors, people in states, red states that had some form of abortion ban, but who were dealing with this chemical abortion. And what we found is that women are in a panic because of these restrictive laws that don't ban abortion, but just restrict it to a certain age, be it 6 weeks or a detected heartbeat. What ends up happening is women are just in fear and in panic, just getting their hands on these drugs and taking them or running to the abortion clinic quickly without taking any time to consider, their own health, what this is going to do to them, what it will do to the baby that they're carrying, with zero informed consent. And it's just really, really dangerous. And so we found in our pregnancy centers here in Florida and in some of these other states that our job got 10 times harder. And that's been just such a frustration to all of us on the ground who've been working in pregnancy centers for so long, where we were able to, we call it power in the pause, where we were able to get the woman to slow down and to think, because decisions made out of fear and panic and immediate are always regretted later. They always look back and say, hey, I would have done something different if I would have just, not operated out of fear and thought there was help and felt like I could have gotten support from someone. And this is the panic that we're seeing, and we're seeing so much regret. And the other thing, Jim, I think that's just been devastating, and I don't know if this will end up bringing an end to the whole chemical abortion problem, but we are seeing massive psychological damage. In fact, there have been some organizations or medical organizations, hospitals that have had to admit women into psychiatric care after having a chemical abortion and taking the abortion pills, because these women are seeing their babies. They're seeing their babies in bottoms of showers, in the toilet. They were told it was just a blob of tissue, and they're actually seeing that little fully formed little baby with hands and feet and a little head, and it's just absolutely destroying them. And back in the day when abortion was surgical, women could kind of say, well, I pay, they could take responsibility in a sense. I had an abortion, but typically they never saw it. They paid a doctor. The doctor did the abortion, and they were one step removed from the process. Whereas now with this chemical abortion, with a do-it-yourself, they're the ones who ordered the pills. Their bedrooms, their bathrooms, their dorms, their apartments have become the abortion clinic, and they're seeing their babies. And it is just the devastation that we're seeing from women physically, emotionally, and spiritually is like nothing we've ever seen before.
Yeah, it's absolutely terrible. And this is all under President Trump's administration. So we have to put this in proper context. Under his HHS, his FDA, that is allowing these abortion pills to continue, even as they say they're reviewing it. They allow it to continue. And even in the meantime, they approve a new abortion pill to come out in the midst of it all. And then a couple of weeks ago, they have a big press conference in the Oval Office about expanding IVF, which the loss of life in IVF, this creating of life in a laboratory and then destroying most of those lives and then freezing some of those lives as well. The loss of life is even more than abortion. So this is pro-death. This is a pro-death policy, this IVF policy, and yet they bill it as pro-life. They gaslight the American people, saying this is all about pro-life, just focusing on the life that is born, which, again, no matter the circumstances, once a life exists, of course, we love that human being, and that's it. But we also have to talk about the fact that what about all the children that are being conceived in a laboratory and then being intentionally killed by IVF? So this is not pro-life at all, actually, even though they're telling us that it is. What are your thoughts as you see this all unfold?
Yeah, Jim, and an important point here. When you have IVF unrestricted, no regulation at all. Well, IVF by itself, if it's done where you're actually conceiving, fertilizing an egg, a new human being is created, and you're either, like you said, freezing them indefinitely, or they're doing experiments on them as they grow the first couple of weeks, and then they're making judgment calls about which ones they're going to keep or discard based on genetic factors. Some of them, Jim, as horrible as a couple saying, I want a boy and I don't want a girl. And so any female babies that are conceived, they just discard them. It's horrendous. And you know how there's no justification for it. Once fertilization occurs, that is a human being, that is a human person right there, and we have to protect every one of them.
Yes, and that's why we are calling for constitutional personhood, which President Trump, all he has to do is be the new Lincoln, sign the new Emancipation Proclamation, an executive order for personhood for the preborn, say, hey, I'm taking it out of politics. This is going to go directly to the Supreme Court. I'm saying that the 14th Amendment is applied to all persons, which is what the original framers of that amendment did intend, including the unborn. And so, therefore, abortion is unconstitutional. Now the Supreme Court can answer the question. It would make them answer that narrow question, and that's where we would get an end to abortion. We'll be right back.
iCatholic Mobile is a proud sponsor of the Station of the Cross. Solid connections, reliable data. That's iCatholic Mobile, a 5G wireless provider dedicated to your faith and values. Enjoy unlimited talk and text, dependable coverage nationwide. And every plan has unlimited data and free roaming in Canada and Mexico. iCatholic Mobile, the service that connects you to what matters most. More info at iCatholicMobile.com.
Welcome back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with Pam Stenzel today. If you want to get a call in, 1-877-511-5483. That's 1-877-511-5483. And by the way, if President Trump doesn't want to sign this executive order on constitutional personhood that would lead to the Supreme Court once and for all ruling that abortion is unconstitutional, take it out of politics, let the Supreme Court do their job, force them to answer the question, when do our inalienable rights begin? Of course they begin when we begin, which is a scientific fact that we begin at conception, fertilization. It's all there for us. It's there in the 14th Amendment under the Equal Protection Clause. It's there in the due process clauses in the 14th Amendment and the 5th Amendment. There it is. It's all right before us. We've got the play. We've got the play. All we have to do is run the play. President Trump signed the executive order. If he won't do it, what about a governor? How about Greg Abbott in Texas? How about Ron DeSantis in Florida? These guys would be first up. Why aren't they signing an executive order in their state that would press their state Supreme Court to have to answer the question, which would then kick up to the United States Supreme Court, make them answer the question? You see what we need to do here. We've got to get this narrow question before the Supreme Court. There's many possibilities on who could trigger this, but the executives are in a particularly good place to do it, from the top executive of President Trump on down to the various governors. We need to call on them to act, and act at once. This is an urgent need. Thousands of innocent children are being murdered every single day in our nation under this lie of abortion. We've got the play. We've got to run the play. And so we've got all of this going on under the President Trump's administration, where they are expanding IVF and calling it pro-life, even though it's actually pro-death, when they're not taking action against the abortion pill, as all of these horrors continue. Absolutely devastating. And so Vice President J.D. Vance, what about him? He is supposed to be a faithful Catholic man. Where does he stand on all this? Can't he he's the vice president of the nation. Can he get some influence going in the right direction here well, it's hard to understand where he's at, but he happened to take some questions at a TPUSA event yesterday at the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss. And so he was asked directly, great for this student. You'll hear her identify herself, the head of the pro-life group there at Ole Miss. Great job of this student asking the question directly to Vice President J.D. Vance. We're going to give you his answer in 3 parts, and we'll have some commentary on it. But here's the first part. Here it is.
Hi, Mr. Vice President. I'm the president of our pro-life organization here at Ole Miss, Rebels for Life. And I myself, as a president, am 100% pro-life. And I know you've stated, you being Catholic, that in the past, you've stated that you're 100% pro-life. But since joining the presidential campaign as the VP, you've kind of wavered how you see abortion. So I'm just wondering what your stance is right now. Sure. And do you think that someone else's right to liberty trumps someone else's right to life?
Well, first of all, I appreciate your question, and I appreciate the work that you do. You asked the question, do I think somebody else's right to liberty trumps somebody else's right to life? No, I do not. I, in fact, do not believe that. Now, you said, and I'm going to take issue with something you said, just the premise of the question, which is that I've wavered on the pro-life issue. I really do believe that the president has been the most pro-life president in the history of the United States of America. Now, that said, there are 2 things that I think we have to keep in mind here. Now, one is the very, very hard question of, when we talk about our abortion policy, there are some very, very difficult edge cases. There are cases where you've got, an 11-year-old girl who was raped, who it would be unsafe for her to bring the baby to term. You've got situations where, bringing a baby to term would cause serious bodily harm, maybe death for the mother. That's one of the reasons why we believe in the exception in these cases where you have, again, they're edge cases, they're rare. I think the pro-abortion community would have you believe that's 90% of abortions. That's not true. We've got to be honest about the fact that there are some edge cases.
Okay, so he's saying, first of all here, we've got to be honest about the fact that there are some edge cases. What is he talking about? Okay, so he's using sort of pro-abortion argumentation here, trying to get the most extreme sort of example and say, this is why we need to have so-called exceptions. Now he backs up a little and says, but there's, the pro-abortion folks want to make you think it's all of that. Well, why are you using that example, actually, Mr. Vice President? What is your intent here? You're doing the same thing because you want to have so-called exceptions in these bills. You want to try to fit yourself into Trump's logic here and say that everything has to have these so-called exceptions. But it's not just about the very narrow edge case that you try to mention here, which we can deal with. And Pam, I'd love you to speak to that. What do you say to somebody who brings up this most extreme example of a pregnant 11-year-old? And then also he brings up the other example of if a woman is going to die. Well, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about ectopic pregnancy, where you remove a portion of the fallopian tube and yes, the child dies as a side effect, but that's not an abortion. That's not intentionally directly killing the child. That's saving the life of a mother in a way that would be permissible and is not included in abortion. So that's not even what we're talking about. There's no medically necessary reason to intentionally directly kill a child within a pregnant woman. There's no medical necessary reason for that. And many doctors have made this case very clear over and over. I would think the vice president would know that. But what is he really talking about? He's talking about how many children are killed by these so-called exceptions that fit into neither of those things that he mentioned. Pam, I think you can speak to this better than anybody. He's really talking about you and many others like you that would be legally murdered under these exceptions that he wants to say are somehow fitting within his pro-life view. It's despicable. He can say it in a sort of elegant, smooth way. It doesn't make it any less despicable. Pam, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love how he just trots out the 11-year-old. And then I wrote down what he said, Jim. I listened very carefully. He didn't really mention rape. We're all going to assume, we all should assume it. An 11-year-old cannot give consent. So an 11-year-old being pregnant, it is rape by definition. But the reality is, he said, where the 11-year-old would be like seriously harmed, or that somehow physical harm would come to the 11-year-old by having her carry a child to term, which is untrue. If an 11-year-old it has fully developed past puberty in order to be able to get pregnant, they're really, her risk of the pregnancy itself or childbirth being harmful is no greater than it would be to anyone. She's going to need some special care, all of those things, but she can give birth. I have a really good friend, Liana, who's from Mexico City originally, who was gang raped at age 12. And, she asked her doctor, they were trying to perform an abortion, and she asked her doctor, well, what's going on with her baby? The doctor told her. She said, will having an abortion make the rape go away? Will it fix the fact, heal me from this gang rape I experienced at 12? And of course the doctor said no. And she said, then why would I take my baby's life? There's no point. I want to keep the baby. She delivered. She had a beautiful daughter. And as she shares her testimony now as an adult, she says that that daughter saved her. The abortion would have probably damaged her so badly because she's already experienced the trauma of the rape. She's already been sexually assaulted. That's enough damage. And then you rip her baby from her womb, causing her even more pain and very well physical harm, performing that abortion. And then she's left with nothing but the pain. Whereas the baby can bring, no matter what decision a rape victim would make, can bring redemption and bring healing just by their existence. And so this concept that every woman who's raped, and then of course we trot out 11 years old. I'm surprised they're not starting to say 9 and 10 just to make it far more worse. It's like, let's just find the youngest age we can possibly imagine. And the reality is abortion does not fix the problem you think it's fixing. And so in most cases, these 11-year-olds are pregnant because of sexual assault going on in their home. In other words, it's either a father, a grandfather, a brother, a boyfriend of mother, live-in stepdad, whatever it is. And abortion on this 11-year-old will not stop the sexual assault. We can prove that. They'll abort the 11-year-old, and the abuser will continue to abuse, and she'll go through a horrible abortion and continue being sexually assaulted, and no one's going to take care of that part. Abortion in the case of rape and incest kills an innocent child, damages the mother, no matter what age she is, and the only person you've helped is the trafficker, the abuser, the perpetrator. That's the only person you've helped. And so to trot out an 11-year-old argument like Vice President Vance just did is insulting to our intelligence. And basically, Jim, he's playing the same game the pro-life community has played for 50 years. They take these crazy things and they say, well, if abortion we should be able to kill an innocent child in this situation. And it's absolutely not even true. And then notice when he moved on to life of the mother, he didn't say life. He said serious bodily harm. And when we start playing games like that, where we're not treating both as patients, when a woman is pregnant, that physician has two patients. He has a mother and he has a child, and both deserve absolute 100% care. And the reality is serious bodily harm is very easy to fudge, and it's not death. So when people say, well, do you agree with it for the life of the mother? Then you better define that properly, because serious bodily harm is not life.
He doesn't even mention IVF in this. I mean, she's just asking, what is your position now? It seems like you've been all over the place, and he kind of takes offense at that in a way. And he goes right to, she didn't say anything about exceptions, but that's what he goes to. It seems like he knows he's off on that. He's in a contradiction there. He's trying to somehow explain himself. It doesn't hold up to reason, but he doesn't even mention IVF, the expansion of IVF, the abortion pill running rampant under this administration. He doesn't mention any of these things. And so, he's very limited in what he even discusses. We'll get to the other clips on what he says, but anything else on what he didn't say there, Pam?
He didn't say, the question always has to be, and she could have maybe pressed into it a little bit. When does life begin? I don't want to hear all these peripheral arguments. You need to say, I believe that life begins, a new human person begins at the moment of fertilization, and that as a government, we have no right to take their life, that they deserve the protections of the 14th Amendment. That's where you have to land on this. And all this other stuff is peripheral.
It's not enough to just be saying, I'm pro-life, I'm 100% pro-life, I'm unapologetically pro-life. Ask people, are you pro-personhood? Are you pro-right to life from conception, fertilization, no exceptions? If you're not, I'm sorry, you're not pro-life then. Okay, you have some other weird definition of what it means, that we can kill people under certain circumstances, that it's okay to kill innocent children under certain circumstances. That's not a right definition of pro-life. But we have to press people on that. Don't just let them get away with saying, I'm pro-life. Well, we make it very clear with the National Men's March to Abolish Abortion and Rally for Personhood. Come show up if you are pro-life from the beginning. No exceptions. Pro-personhood. Let's end this. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with Pam Stenzel. We do have the National Men's March to Abolish Abortion Rally for Personhood in Boston, Massachusetts this weekend, All Saints Day, Saturday, 11 a.m. Men, join us outside of the Planned Parenthood Killing Center there on Commonwealth. We're going to march at 11:30 to the Parkman Bandstand in the Boston Common. There, the rally for personhood will begin at 12:45 p.m. Women, children, families all join in there. We've got national speakers, Sister Dee Dee Byrne, Will Goodman, Walter and Lori Hoy, Pam Stenzel, Father Stephen Imbarato, Bishop Joseph Strickland. Some local speakers will be mixed in there as well. Hey, you never know who might show up and who we might have, so you got to come and be with us there. If you can't, if you can support it in prayer, we greatly appreciate that. If you can support it in any way, themensmarch.com, all the information there at themensmarch.com. And we do invite you to come join us tomorrow night at the prayer event there at St. Mary of the Assumption in Dedham, Massachusetts. St. Mary of the Assumption, Dedham, Massachusetts, Friday, October 31st, 7 p.m. Confessions, Eucharistic Adoration with the Mass to follow, 7:30 p.m. The Mass there at St. Mary of the Assumption. Come join us if you can. All right, let's go back to the comments of Vice President J.D. Vance. Let's hear the next portion here. He continues on at this TPUSA event at Ole Miss. Here it is.
The second thing I'd say about this is that we have to be prudential and practical in what can get accomplished. And there may be disagreements about what exactly that is, but if you look at the pro-life victories that the President of the United States has been able to achieve, he's been able to achieve them because he has worked within the system that we have. If your attitude is you are going to pursue the most aggressive pro-life option, even if it means you lose every election and every outcome means that you're going to be in a situation where the Democrats have abortion on demand up to the moment of birth to the very end. You've got to work within the political constraints that we have.
Now, this is, I think, a ridiculous argument. It might sound decent on its face to some people, but when you think it through, it's absolutely ridiculous. This is not the way politics works, especially with President Trump. When he leads on something, he takes people with him. He takes his entire base with him and then some. If he led on this, the moral high ground, when it comes to not murdering innocent children, if he led on this, he would change hearts and minds in such a massive tidal wave sort of way overnight. Everyone would be on board with him on his base. His base would all of a sudden be super hard charging pro-personhood folks books, and they would be right there with him. Yeah, would there be pushback from the Democrats? Sure, there's pushback anyway from the Democrats. It would be the same pushback. And so make the moral argument, lead on life. It's not this false choice of, well, we have to work within the constraints. If we try for too much, we're going to make people mad, and then we're never going to win an election again. That's absolute cowardice and absolute nonsense. It's not even logical. You don't say that about any other political issue that you're advancing. You lead on the things that you believe are important. So why don't you make this a priority, Mr. Vice President and Mr. President? The play is there before you within the constraints of our system. All you have to do, President Trump, is make that determination and say, I'm going to sign an executive order on constitutional personhood, and basically just hold up the moral argument, say the scientific fact is life begins at conception, fertilization. These are human beings. Every human being is a human person. This is nothing anybody can argue with. Why are we killing them? Why are we murdering them? We have to do better. And by the way, I believe it's outlawed under the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And I may be wrong, so let's let the U.S. Supreme Court do their job. Let's take this out of politics where it's been dividing us for decades, and let's put it where it belongs. Let the Supreme Court answer this very important question. This is their job. Have them answer the question. Is it constitutional or not? Are these children in the womb persons or not? Every human being is a human person. So we believe if they have to rule narrowly on that question, they will get it right. All right. Now we better be ready with a grassroots argument, a grassroots effort on the other side of that to be able to support that. But again, a leader like President Trump, or if Ron DeSantis were to do it, anybody who would push forward on this, people would follow you. If you would lead on this, people would follow. So I just don't buy that argument from Vice President Vance. Pam, your thoughts?
Well, it's the same argument, Jim, we've been hearing from the National Right to Life, from our state right to most of our state right to life. It's the same concept. It's like, it's not winnable. We've got to do this incrementalism. We've got to take little wins and pat ourselves on the back for these wins. Basically, it is reductionist. It's like we want less abortion. It has nothing to do with no abortion, abolishing abortion. And we've showed you what all of these efforts that he claims are so amazing, and all of these so-called pro-life wins that have happened under Trump and even his first term, and maybe even some before, state by state, it's gotten us almost no reduction in abortion. The reality is that there is really no reduction. I mean, there were minimal reduction in the state of Florida, minimal, and that's because we don't even count the abortion pill. Jim, I just got the numbers out of Georgia, who has a stricter abortion law than the state of Florida. They still have some exceptions, but not as open-ended as Florida's are. And last year in 2024 in the state of Georgia, there were 28,147 abortions, and that does not account for those who were not residents of Georgia or the use of the chemical abortion pill. So not one abortion pill over the state is included in that 28,147 abortions. And here's another astounding stat, that 65% of that number, so 18,314 of those abortions were done on African American or black babies. So the reality is this is a full-on genocide going on, and 65% of those abortions on black babies. And this is what our so-called pro-life laws that we have to wait around. It gets us every time. I can't even begin to tell you that we have not, anybody that tells you that these laws have caused a reduction in abortion is just lying. Jim, I was speaking at the Venice Diocese here in Florida. Listen to someone who represented this No on Amendment 4 group speak to a bunch of pregnancy center people in the Venice Diocese, representing the diocese. And Jim, I almost lost my marbles on the spot listening to her. She said how great the Florida law was, because these exceptions, we have 6 exceptions and they're amazing. And you need to tell your neighbors that they can support our pro-life laws because it has all these exceptions. And then she put a screen on, or a slide on her little PowerPoint and it said, "We've won the war. Now we have to win the peace." I almost lost my ever-loving mind. And if this is what people are hearing from so-called pro-life organizations and the vice president and his administration, that we're winning the war and it's great and what we're doing is working, if that's what they're saying, they are lying directly to the American people. There's no reduction in abortion. We've made it worse.
Yes, yeah, they are lying. I think that's absolutely clear at this point. They're gaslighting the American people and telling them that things that are actually components of the culture of death that they're advancing are actually pro-life. And so, yeah, we can't let this stand. There should be a pro-life movement that stands up to this very vigorously. Sadly, doesn't seem to exist. It'd be great to have some highly influential sorts of, influencers, podcasters that would take the lead on this. Just folks with small microphones like myself on this isn't going to cut it. But hey, we'll fulfill whatever responsibility we have and just do the right thing here and speak out on this and stand up however we can. But I think about somebody like Candace Owens, right? She was such a friend of Charlie Kirk's, as she says. This is happening at a TPUSA event. Vice President J.D. Vance making these remarks. How can TPUSA let these remarks stand? And where's Candace Owens on this? I mean, look, it's fine. There's all sorts of conspiracy theories that people can have out there. Some are true, some are not. I don't know. For a lot of them, I think, are we ever going to really know? I'm not sure, but people sure spend a whole lot of time thinking about them. When we have something right before us, it's no theory. This is right before us. The mass murder of innocent children happening right now, every single day, on our watch, in our backyards, in our nation, in our time. What are we doing about it? To be acting like, look over here, look at this shiny thing, when this is right in front of us and we're not pushing with everything we've got to end it, we're missing it. So yeah, I would call on people like Candace Owens and others, whoever has any sort of influence, for all of us, whatever our gifts, abilities, whatever influence we have, we've got to push for the end. We've got to abolish abortion, abolish child murder, no more of this. Just like if we were alive during the times of slavery, we ought to be abolitionists, fighting for the end of slavery, for it to be illegal and ultimately unthinkable, which it now is because of the abolitionists back then. We've got to do that now. It's up to us to push forward to make it illegal and ultimately unthinkable. That's what we've got to do. That's why the National Men's March to Abolish Abortion and Rally for Personhood in Boston, Massachusetts this weekend. It's a launch pad for more, but it is an important event for us to come together, stand up together and say this has to end. It has to end now, and to call for constitutional personhood to be affirmed. Pam, your thoughts?
Yeah, we need to do it, and we need to stop some of the organizations. I would say Live Action has probably a lot more reach than Candace. Candace's credibility has kind of been shot out the window here. But the Students for Life, Live Action, these kind of people have a voice, and a very strong voice, and they've been very effective, especially with the younger generation. They need to be much more clear. But I will tell you this, one of the things, and again, it's back to the way we've done things for 60 years has not worked. The definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. And one of the things I hear, Jim, some of the big names out there who get worried about personhood and the constitutional amendment, they're like, well, they're worried about women being charged, or, how do I want to say this? Women being prosecuted for abortion. And I would say this to them: the reality is we don't make decisions. We do the right thing, which is constitutional personhood, and we worry about the fallout later. But the reality is this: there is no real way in today's world with the abortion pill and women being the abortionist that you cannot hold her accountable to some extent. She's going to have to bear responsibility for what she did. And that doesn't mean we're going to prosecute women when it was legal, but there certainly if women go forward and procure an abortion, there's going to have to be a consequence for that. There's no way around it. And I would say this spiritually for those pro-lifers that say to me, no, Pam, we can't, the women are the victims. That's not the case. These women are not all victims. Yes, there might be some whose boyfriend slipped the drugs into their pill, or they didn't even know what was happening. Yes, they are a victim. But the reality is women who procure and take and go through with a chemical abortion are 100% responsible. It's do-it-yourself abortion. They did it, and they must be held accountable. And I don't understand how spiritually, how can you expect women to heal from something or to without confession, without repentance, without standing before God and acknowledging what it is that you did? I've had women tell me that they tried to get a healing, they got some measure of healing, but it wasn't until the moment that they said out loud in confession, I murdered my child, that they actually experienced true freedom and grace and healing from what they had done. So how is it that we cannot hold women accountable for this? They are accountable. Let the law fall where it lies.
Right. And again, you made a very clear distinction there that is important, because that's the first easy thing that people on the other side will try to do to throw cold water on this. They'll act like we're talking about the prosecution of women before abortion is made illegal. No, once abortion is made illegal, once child murder is made illegal, no one's being prosecuted for anything before that point. But once it is made illegal, as it rightly ought to be, then you are breaking the law. And when you break the law, there is a consequence. It depends on culpability and all of that. Lots of factors. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Back to The Simple Truth. Jim Havens here with Pam Stenzel. Come join us tomorrow night, Friday night, in Dedham, Massachusetts at St. Mary of the Assumption for Eucharistic Adoration and the Holy Mass. 7 p.m. Join us there, St. Mary of the Assumption, 25 Avery Street, Dedham, Massachusetts. Also, the Men's March the next day, the Rally for Personhood. This is all on All Saints Day, Saturday there in Boston. All the information at themensmarch.com. Going to be a great event. Pam's going to be there, God willing. I'll be there, God willing, along with many more, including Bishop Joseph Strickland and others. Please pray for this event, that it could be what God wants it to be. Pray for all those who are participating, and come be one of those participating if in any way possible. We'd love to see you there. Again, all the information at themensmarch.com. Let's go to the final clip of J.D. Vance. And just to set it up, I think he does better in this clip. And this is a sign of hope for Vice President Vance. He's not so far off that he could not change in a moment. All right. As it is for many. I think he just has to kind of come to reality here, face reality. What are we actually talking about? What about the babies? He's part of an administration that is overseeing the nation while thousands of children, innocent children, are being directly murdered every day by this lie of abortion. I'm sorry, if it were me and I was part of an administration overseeing that sort of thing, I would feel a very strong responsibility, rightly so. And so I would hope he would come to face that reality, understand his responsibility in the face of all of this, and repent of what he's done, what he hasn't done, make a new resolve to do more, to do better, to do reparation as we move forward. This is what we're asking of ourselves and of everyone. It's the 5 R's that we talk about: face reality, take responsibility, repent, make a new resolve, go forth in reparation. This is the way. And so once this is made illegal, once child murder is made illegal, there's a whole lot of healing that needs to be done. But until then, the law is a teacher. And when child murder is legal, I do think this is an exploitation by lying to women across our nation. They may know better in many cases, but at the same time, they might have a little something, a little nudge to say, well, maybe it's okay. Maybe it's not that bad. After all, it is legal, right? The law is a teacher. And so we are teaching people something based on what is legal and what is not. It needs to be made illegal. Child murder ought to be made illegal. And then that closes off that door, that exploitation of women by that lie of abortion, even if they are inclined to kill their child by abortion after that point. I think the nudge is going to be in the other direction. Well, maybe there's actually something wrong with this. It's illegal. Maybe I better not. The law oftentimes does prevent somebody from doing something they otherwise otherwise would have done. Very, very important. So we need to pray, continue to pray and work. President Trump, J.D. Vance, the governors, everybody overseeing all of this, our bishops, our priests, our pope, everybody in places of influence in the media and culture. We need leaders to lead on life to get to the abolition of abortion. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be that is going to step up on this? Let's just keep praying and working and see what takes place. But we hope we have hope for Vice President J.D. Vance. I think some of that hope shines through in the comments here. Here's the last bit of what he had to say at the TPUSA event at Ole Miss yesterday on abortion. Here it is.
Here, let me just say something about this. And you know, somebody asked me earlier about my Christian values. And one of the points I made is that when the settlers came to the New World, they found a very widespread child sacrifice. I imagine there are some people who don't agree with my view on the pro-life issue. Let me just make an observation. If you go to historical archaeological sites where there were brothels, and the two oldest businesses in the world are gambling and prostitution, so there were brothels even in very ancient civilizations. If you go back to ancient brothels and you dig up the bones of the women who were working in these places, you will very often find a lot of children who were buried with them. And the answer is that whenever a society decides to discard innocent babies, they also don't treat their women very well. And whenever a society mistreats its women, it is very often the babies who come right after that. There is a reason why Christian civilization ended the practice of child sacrifice all over the world, and it's one of the great accomplishments of Christian civilization. I believe that we should try to be protecting every unborn life. There's a question of exactly how we do it, but I would never say that anyone's right to life should be sacrificed. Thank you, man.
All right. So at the end, it's not too good saying there's a question of how we do it. And so therefore, what do you just punt and you're not going to do it? You're not going to really try? Because I don't see the effort, quite frankly, there from the vice president or the current administration in trying to protect every unborn life. I don't see it at all. Pam, your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. And Jim, here's the thing. They, again, don't go back and define it. I want to hear from his mouth that he believes that life begins at fertilization and natural death, so that we don't put age marks on this. We don't say, well, prior to this or prior to a heartbeat or implantation or whatever he wants. He just talks about child sacrifice and then doesn't reiterate that life begins from fertilization. From that moment, a new human being exists with a right to life right there. So that's part of the vague problem with what he said. But the other thing is, Jim, I loved your 4 R's. I tried to write them all down. Were there 4 or did I miss one? The 5.
The 5th now.
The realization.
We got reparation now for a 5th. Yes.
Oh, so realization, responsibility, repentance. What's the other one?
Resolve. A new resolution. A new resolve. Yes.
Resolve, and that comes before reparation. Okay, so those are huge. We need to hang on to those because, Jim, here's the situation. We have had states come forward with personhood. They've done it. North Dakota did it, and it was the pro-life community that attacked it. It was the pro-life community that said no. When Alabama did it, if you remember, Alabama Supreme Court declared personhood from fertilization, and it was the pro-life community that attacked that whole thing. So what we need to understand is that when they make it sound like we can only do things that are politically expedient, the other side, the pro-abortion, the pro-death camp is not going to agree with not one thing that we do, not one little of their silly restrictions. And the reality is when we try to do the right thing, the moral thing, the biblical thing, and that is to declare personhood, it's the pro-life people that call themselves that attack that good work and that either whether it's a state, certainly we haven't even seen it go to the Supreme Court. So yeah, I want Ron DeSantis to do something, but do you know what? I don't want the so-called pro-life community of Florida to be the ones to attack what Ron DeSantis would choose to do. And that's who it's going to be.
It's a great point. So, Yeah. Any thoughts on what any marching orders for us, and then also any personal invitation you'd like to give for folks to come join us this weekend for the Men's March and the Rally for Personhood up in Boston?
Jim, I'm so excited because this is the marching orders. First of all, I love the Men's March. I love the fact it's men standing up saying, you know what, we're going to lead on life, that they want personhood, that they want the right and moral thing to be done before God. And you know what? The men that show up at Men's March, they're saying, you know what? I don't answer to a governor. I don't answer to a state, the vice president of the United States. I answer to God. We do have a king, one and only, and that's King Jesus. And it has nothing to do with all of these politicians. And so men show up, stand up. We need to do it all across the country. And we need to say, you know what? We're going to obey God, and we're going to honor God with what we choose to do with how we vote and approach this topic, not a party.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Pam Stenzel. She's going to be with us, God willing. We've got some great folks that are going to show up. Come and join us in Boston. All the information at themensmarch.com, themensmarch.com. And remember, so this is what it is to be a real man. Real men protect innocent women and children, vulnerable women and children when there's a threat of harm. Real men don't harm them. Real men don't look the other way. Real men stand up and protect. Men, it's time to get off the sidelines. Let's get together in Boston. Get there, themensmarch.com. God bless you all.